Hasnain, you requested it to come on. I finally got him. Here he is.
Love it.
Guys, are you leaving? Wasim, go home.
He's kicking us out, by the way. He doesn't want us.
Yo, Wasim, go home, bro. You had your chance already, bro. It's our turn now.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to 76 Boulevard. This is episode 24, Uncomfortable Conversations, Islam and Hip Hop with Ali the Soulful Poet.
I can't apologize for being somebody that I believe is the best version of myself. And if that's not something that people want to vibe with, I can't take the blame for that.
Ali the Soulful Poet is an Arab-Canadian independent poet, creative and artist from Ottawa, Ontario. He has performed across Canada and has gained awards, accolades and recognition from Muslim Fest, Faces Magazine and plenty of others. Today we'll be talking about our own personal perspectives on music and on understanding and appreciating different perspectives that we may disagree with. We'll also be talking with Ali about his transition from spoken word to hip-hop and his own drive toward chasing his passions. We titled this conversation Uncomfortable Conversations because many of our listeners may find this conversation, you guessed it, uncomfortable. But 76 Boulevard is a platform for Muslims who hold a diverse range of views and opinions, and though you may disagree with many of them, this podcast is a safe space to have such conversations. So from myself, Hasnain and Ali, we hope you enjoy this episode and the many more to come. Welcome once again to 786 Boulevard.
Ali, Soulful Poet. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam. How's it going, Nouri?
Appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for joining us. I titled the topic of this episode Uncomfortable Conversations, Islam and Hip Hop. And the reason I titled it that, I'm sure many people listen to this podcast and many regulars on our audience, including Hasnain, be like, what do you mean uncomfortable conversations? Or what's uncomfortable about this conversation? But I think there is a big majority of Muslims who do feel uncomfortable around music, which I think is fine. Like I said before we started this episode, everyone's kind of entitled to their truth, and I feel like with this podcast as well, me and Hasnain have had many conversations and Ali offline about this. We don't want it to be a case of where we bring people on who vibe with our perspectives all the time. We want to bring on people that we might disagree with. We want to bring on a diverse set of Muslims with a diverse set of opinions, which I think is very important to have a healthy conversation. So
absolutely.
I think dialogue is very important, and I think that just because you're having, I think that there's no harm in having conversations with people that you disagree with. I think that's just part of life, right? And I'm really happy that we have this platform to do that. So I wanted to start off by throwing this question out there to everyone here, and I'll kind of perhaps put my perspective last. What are your own personal perspectives on music? And again, like just a bit of a caveat, none of us here are Islamic scholars apart from Ayatollah Hasnain, who has studied many years in the seminary. We're not here to give religious rulings on things. We're just kind of like giving our own opinion. So I want to throw it out there to anyone who wants to answer it. What are your own personal perspectives on music? Hasnain, let's start with you.
All right. First of all, before I even start, I want to welcome back Ali Alvi, who's been missing for a few episodes.
He returns.
Welcome back. Nobody was asking about you, but welcome back. So music for me, I don't know. I don't think there's any harm to it. From my research, I don't think music is mentioned in the Quran, aside from what I found out was the entertainment of speech, which you can dabble. There's a lot of back and forth with it. So that's just my perspective on it. I just it's some things in the Quran are clear that it says these are forbidden. These are it. Music is not one of them. Again, there's also other avenues of music, like certain instruments can be played. From my research, certain for example, if we spoke about in the past, if it can be played in a club, it's basically haram. But then again, my perspective is, for me, music doesn't make me go and do anything harmful. For me, music is either I'm at the gym, I'm just drowning out noise. If I'm studying, if I'm writing a script, I'm drowning out noise. Or if I'm just putting on my headphones, I'm gonna listen to some sort of tunes just to drown out noise. It doesn't make me do anything. So from my perspective, that's basically what it is. And somebody actually asked me, they were like, well, what's if music has a certain basically thought in Islam, then how about national anthems that are played in Muslim countries? Wouldn't that be part of that conversation as well? I'm like, yeah, that's a really good point. Just, food for thought. But that's just my perspective.
I think one thing like none of us can kind of deny here is that music is such a big part of so many Muslims' lives, especially in the West, and it's a part of culture generally, right? So I think that when you kind of address it, we need to appreciate the fact that it is a massive part of so many people's lives, and it is a massive part, a huge part of culture. Which is why I kind of felt like it was important to have an episode on music. Ali, Alvi, what's your kind of own personal, very, you always, I feel like you're always full of wisdom. You always have a lot of wisdom to offer us. So what's your wisdom on this topic? Ali, Alvi.
First of all, thanks for unmuting me.
Sorry, so I know you've got your wonderful new mic, which but I just realized when we started the episode that there's some sort of background noise coming in. I don't know where it's coming from, so I might have to.
Yeah, my window's open. That's why I was asking if it was good or not.
Okay, fine. Yeah.
After
So yeah. Okay, so after you finish it, please do close it.
So music for me, when I was growing up, when I was younger, I used to listen to it all the time, like left and right every day. That was just part of life, as it is for most people. But as I grew up, I became a little bit more closer spiritually to religion. Started finding out that maybe that's not something we should be listening to, right? So I stopped completely, actually, after I got in a car accident. I was like, no, I'm never going to listen to it again.
Wait. What's this story? I haven't heard this story before.
Oh, I was, I want to say like 16 or 17. I was coming home from the mosque. I went to drop off my friend's grandparents. And on my way back, my phone, I had my cell phone sitting between my legs like most people do when we're driving. And my phone rang. I went to pick it up and I didn't recognize the number, but it was actually my dad calling from the mosque, finding out how long I'm going to be to get back because we're all going to take the same car back home. As soon as I picked up and I looked up, I went right through a stop sign. I got hit by a drunk driver.
Wow.
So my car went spinning and I went into a tree. The doors opened up, the roof caved in, literally the hood opened, the trunk opened, everything. Not a single scratch on me. And I got out and I was like, wow, how did this happen, right? So after that, I was like, okay, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to try to do the right things as I'm supposed to be doing. So at that point, I went home. And back then it was cassettes, not, CD players or anything like that. I know you're going to go, I know what you're going to say. So I literally took them, broke all of them. And then some time went by, and then I started listening again. And then eventually I stopped. But I don't think it's just, that, like Aslan said, that it's going to make you go and do something. And again, depending on who you follow, what your religious guidance is, different types of music is okay for different types of, accolades that allow it. But I don't think it's so much about you going to do something bad. I think it's also how it affects you mentally and how it affects you spiritually. Especially, I think a few years ago, I found out that there's a tone that was changed 10, 15, 20 years ago from what it used to be. And I don't know exactly what the different tones are. Maybe Ali can tell us, I don't know. But it was changed to where it actually makes people a little more depressed if they don't listen to it or something. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about. I'm going to have to Google it.
Addictive,
you know what I'm talking
basically.
about or no?
Addictive. I don't know what you're talking about, but generally what you're saying is music these days is much more addictive than it used to be. Based on
I think it's also addictive, and maybe what the type of effect it has on our brains. I don't know.
That's
so I will look that up, and I'm going to close the window while you guys discuss the rest.
I think you know what's one thing that which you said which was very interesting was that it kind of depends on, I guess, which Ayatollah or which Imam or Sheikh you follow. And what's interesting is that when you look at Muslims on a vast spectrum, there's completely different interpretations on music. I think within Shia Islam specifically, we're all Shias here. I think within Shia Islam, it's much more rigid. But when you step out of that circle, you see, for example, you have, your more hardline kind of Muslims that are like all sounds are haram. I've heard from some Muslims, not even music. And then you have Muslims such as, who are more on like in Sufi circles, for example, who actually use music as a way to reach Allah and to connect with Allah. Right. So I think that's very interesting. So Ali, Soulful Poet, I feel like you got a lot to say on the subject. So, tell us your 2 cents.
For sure, and thank you to yourself, Nouri, Hasnain, and Ali Alvi for having me. It's truly an honor to be on the podcast, and I look forward to this episode. Beautiful topic. I think you strategically chose me for this topic, which I appreciate, and I'm glad we've kept in touch, Nouri, over the years. But for me, music is a form of expression. It's a form of getting a message across to people. That's how I see it, but it also serves as a method of entertainment. I do think that there's a time and place for it. I share a parallel opinion to Hasnain in the sense that there's a misconception or a common theory that if you listen to a certain type of music, you'll eventually become it. I think yes and no. It depends on the person. It depends on the consumption. It depends on specific cases. I don't think there's like a one size fits all definition of what music is from a permissibility standpoint, because I feel as though from what I've read from scholars and the research I've made, it's very much a personal question. It's what you perceive it to be and how you believe it'll affect you, and you have the responsibility to either allow yourself or not allow yourself to consume the things that you believe is either benefiting you or hindering your growth and your spiritual connection to Allah.
So I think what's so interesting is that, like I said before, so many of us have so many different perspectives on music, and I'll give my perspective, and I'm just gonna be honest with you. Music is something I try to stay away from as much as possible. I feel like, generally from my understanding of for me, things are very scientific and literal when it comes to interpreting Islamic law. I know it's not the same way for everyone, but it's definitely the way it is for me. And for me, again, I think music itself is such a broad term. Music can refer to, classical music. It can even technically even Nohas, Latmiyas, and Nasheeds fall under music, and even Islamically, the Prophet was welcomed with Talatu Badr Alayna. So singing has always been like a part of our history and culture. But I think now when we think about music, usually what we're really referring to is ghina, which is a specific type of music, which is basically, the music industry as it is today, vain, meaningless, idle, pointless talk, rapping about materialistic things and guns and women and stuff like that. And I feel like I do understand that there is some kind of nuance when it comes to the topic, but I also feel like, and I'm just being honest with you, the conversations that I have with people surrounding it, like I said before we started the podcast, people who kind of lean toward music being okay, I feel like sometimes they use that as a bit of an excuse to listen to all kinds of music. And I feel like personally that is a bit dangerous. For me personally, I think Ali kind of said this as well, music might have a different relationship, a different effect on different people. For me, it definitely kind of pushes me away from anything that pushes me away from spirituality, from moral values, and toward aimlessness and sin. I try to stay away from at all costs. But at the same time, like I do, as you guys know, write poetry. I'm always producing latmiyas and nohas, and that technically does kind of fall under music. But again, like it's not within that realm of music as we know it today. So I think, again, like I said before, we can agree to disagree. There are many perspectives on this issue, and I'm sure many people listen to this thinking, what are you talking about? Music is fine, listen to it every day, and it is such a big part of people's lives.
Hey, assalamu alaikum everyone. Thank you for listening to us. I hope you're really enjoying the conversation. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all these other places. I don't even know where Nouri put us on, but make sure you subscribe and keep listening to us. Tell your friends and have them subscribe as well. Take care.
I do want to get back into this topic later, but I want to get back into first I want to jump into your story, Ali. We've known each other for quite some time. I've kind of been following your journey from almost the very beginning. So I think one thing that really inspires me about you is definitely your drive and your determination. I remember since the first time I met you, you kept telling me, you want to succeed, you want to win. You got that, I want to give everything it takes to reach the top echelons of my craft, which I think is a really inspiring mentality to have. And I kind of want you to tell us a story about how you drove down to Muslim Fest, at the first one, because I remember you posted this on your Instagram story, and even when I saw that I was like, oh wow, this guy's serious. So tell us that story, because I think it is quite an inspiring story, and what kind of drives you to be the best in your craft.
Yeah, most definitely, and thank you for that. The generous comments. Appreciate it, Nouri, especially coming from you. Um, but yeah, I've always done my best to implement a hustler's mentality in whatever I do. I think whether it's getting closer to God or whether it's my craft or whether it's washing the dishes for my mom. Regardless, I want to be able to do the best I can do, and be the best I can be. So the Muslim Fest was the Muslim Fest sort of time when that happened. It was a big turning point in my career. It's when I told myself that, listen, I see a place for myself. Um, in what I do, I see myself doing more than simply remaining like a local artist that presented at workshops, and I wanted to be more of an international talent. I want to be recognized globally, kind of like yourself, Nouri.
Thank
But
you.
and so
I don't know about that.
Hasnain doesn't appreciate me.
I don't know. I mentioned Nouri Sardar the other day to someone. They said, who?
Yeah, for real.
Well, I'll be honest. Once upon a time, I don't know how many followers you have on Instagram, but at the time you had about 12,000, and I had like 600, and I was like, you know what? That's so many. Now I'm at around 10K, and I'm like, you know what? Yeah, it's not that cool.
It's not that hard.
Yeah, he's not as cool as I thought he was, but no, for real though. Yes, so I started plugging myself into where I felt I was most comfortable to start, and the Muslim community was a community that I already had the backing of in my city, in Ottawa, Ontario. So Toronto is about 5-6 hours away driving. So I had to, and I knew that my city being the capital of Canada and a little smaller than most capital cities, it didn't have the resources for artists to grow and pursue their craft, whether it's poetry, music, or anything. And Toronto was the only place where I could sort of get that opportunity. So I reached out to Muslim Fest via email, and of course I was a unrecognizable nobody at the time. I told them, listen, I'm this, this, and this, and I'm a poet, and I enjoy performing, and I'm a Muslim, and I think I really do well on stage. So they replied back to me saying, basically what they probably would say to every other contestant or every other kid trying to get on stage was that join the talent competition, and then if you win that, you'll get 3 minutes on stage at the worst time, like definitely not prime time, but you'll get some random time on stage, but you'll get stage time. So I said, you know what, Mashi, okay. So
Before
I told my parents.
Before you continue, for anyone who might not be aware of what Muslim Fest is, what is Muslim Fest?
Okay, so Muslim Fest is the biggest Muslim festival. So it's a festival commemorating Muslim culture and Muslim people. It's the biggest one in North America. So they're based in Toronto, but they've done events across Canada and America, and it's one of the biggest outdoor festivals in the Muslim community.
Nice.
So
we have the Macy's Day Parade here.
Say that again.
We have the Macy's Day Parade. That's the biggest parade.
Is that the one with the Thanksgiving Day Parade with the Snoopy and stuff? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I just know that from Friends. Sorry, I carry on.
Yeah.
No problem. But yeah, so I wanted to reach for what I thought was attainable, but also the biggest of the attainable for me. So that was Muslim Fest. So I told my parents, I said, listen, hey, I want to commit to this. I really want to push forward. And so I but the one condition my dad gave me said that if you're serious, it's gonna have to be out of your pocket, and if you think it's gonna benefit you, go like make it your gain or your loss, and I want you to learn from this. So of course I was thinking that I can't lose, no way possible, but yeah, so I rented out a car for the weekend. I rented out a hotel and drove both my younger brother and my mom there, just to show how committed I am. You know how the Prophet brought his family when he was doing you all know that story. Yeah,
like
there you go.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. A little bit of mubahila, to prove myself. But yes, so I go and I perform at the talent competition, and there were artists like Buna Muhammad, who's a very, very amazing spoken word artist, Isam Muhammad, and others who were judging. So I arrive and I do my thing on stage, and thankfully I win the talent competition, and it was against very talented, about 20 other talented Muslim youth who were looking to get on stage. So I didn't know what time I'd be given for stage time, but after I won, they told me that it was at a 3 p.m. on a Sunday. And if you ever walk through Toronto at 3 p.m. on a Sunday, you know that it's a ghost town. But I said, you know what, nonetheless, that's fine. So the next day comes, it's Sunday, so I arrive and I perform on stage in front of, I think, what was 25 people in total. And this is a festival that hosts thousands daily. But of course, it just wasn't the right time. But nonetheless, I do my thing and I make sure I meet and I create a positive relationship with the stage manager, the director, and I also got a backstage pass. And that's where I think that was the gold in all of it. So my performance lasted from 3 p.m. to about 3:10. It was about 10 minutes, not more than that. But it was an amazing time. And I stayed there backstage until I saw the artists that were main staging. You know, the artists like JD and Khalid Sadiq, and other very well-known artists. So I did that only to be able to meet them, just to be able to meet them. And I sat there in boredom, scrolled through my phone, looked at the same posts on Instagram time and time again, played the same game over and over. And so I was able to build the connections and come home, alhamdulillah, with like a victory.
What was it like meeting? Because I noticed from your Instagram you kind of built a relationship with these guys, JD and I think maybe Khalid Sadiq as well, who we know here from the UK. What was it like meeting them and collaborating with them? Because these guys are quite big in the Muslim community.
Yeah, for me it was. I tried my best not to be starstruck, given that these were people that I look up to and I appreciated their art a lot. So the way I told myself that I was going to go about it was have my business card in hand, so that I would feel less of a kid running towards a candy shop. So I had approached them both times, each one of them individually, and they were super respectful, super understanding, super, I guess, welcoming. So I've been fortunate that JD is actually from my home city. Like he's a local artist in my city, so it was a lot easier to build a relationship with him. And now we've carried on a lifelong friendship. Alhamdulillah, it's been really positive, and it's a very inspiring story. And that's one of the biggest takeaways I could say from that Muslim Fest experience. It wasn't necessarily performing; it was simply just building those connections.
I think what's really interesting is that you had your parents' support, which a lot of people don't get. And I think that's a good foundation to start off with.
I mean, you could also argue that I didn't, since I had to pay for everything, and since I had to do it on my own per se. Yeah. And my mom and my brother wanted to tag along because it was a nice little vacation for them as well. But
so you're paying also.
I paid everything. I paid for their food. I paid for everything. So everything was times 3.
Basically. Then.
I think the goal was to make me feel the weight of what I'm potentially doing, and I think alhamdulillah, I think my confidence is what got me through most of it, and I am glad that I was given the opportunity and I was allowed to go, for sure.
Hasnain, what's your perspective on? There's this whole movement of Muslim kind of I guess rappers, hip hop artists. You have your JD and Khalid Sadiq. I think Boona Mohammed's more on the spoken word side. I don't know how familiar you are with them, but what's your perspective on that niche within the music circle?
So I'll be 100% honest with you. It's something new to me. At least here in New York City, where it's the mecca of hip hop and everything. I think now that everything is being introduced to me as hey, these are Muslim artists who sing and rap and do hip hop. It's a new phenomenon for me, at least here. I love it. As an artist myself, I think that this is we always talk about Muslim representation in film. We always talk about Muslim representation in every aspect, and Muslim belong in every aspect. And when it comes to music, I think we belong there, whether we're producing it or whether we're singing it. This goes back to the conversation earlier about music in general, and there is good music and bad music, right? We can separate the two. And all I'm hearing from these Muslim artists are their God consciousness, but they're just rapping or singing about it. So for me, I think it's phenomenal. I'm a big fan of it. Push forward for it and make a space for us in that area, and just be God conscious. So I'm all for it. I think it's great.
That's really well said. And I think one thing that we sort of failed to, or that sort of we brush over the cracks with, is hip hop's or Islam's influence on hip hop. It wasn't Islamic references have been made in hip hop for generations, since its beginning. and it's always had an influence. There's always been Muslim Americans from the Bronx, from where it all started, using Islamic terms and expressing themselves and expressing their faith through their music and through their work.
Yeah, I've heard more alhamdulillahs in rap songs than I've ever heard before.
A couple inshallah here and there.
You mentioned earlier that. Oh, you're done?
No, yeah, of course I'm done. We'll go ahead.
Are you sure?
Yeah, positive.
No, you mentioned earlier that you took your family and you were committed to going there and making sure everything got done. Now, a lot of times what we find, especially these days with people that are trying to do something, whether they're starting a business or getting into any sort of passion that they have, they're not quite that passionate. So what would you say, why is it so important to be like really committed to your passion?
That's a great question. I think your passion is what makes you unique, and it's what makes you you. So if you're not striving to be you, then what are you striving for?
Yeah.
You know what's very interesting about
passion is art, bro. Like they go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
Art's gonna suffer if there's no passion in it.
Yeah, exactly.
But you know what's very interesting is that I feel like it's not the select few artists who are in the limelight or who are, let's say, doing what they love, who have passions. I feel like everyone's got passions. Everyone's got, you know, something they enjoy. But I feel like the majority of people don't either know how to dive into those passions or know how to kind of like build a relationship with those passions, or else they fear really embracing those passions. So I mean, what kind of advice do you have for Muslims who might be out there, who might have a passion, be it anything, be it art, film, you know, whatever it is? What advice would you give to them to kind of like go out there and dedicate time to their passions?
Honestly, if it's who you are, remain persistent. I know there may be repercussions, whether it's cultural or parental, or even you might lose friends. But if it's who you are and you believe that this is what that Allah's made you to do and created you for, and has placed this innate ability of whatever it is, and it's innate passion within you, then it's almost, you can argue that it's haram or it's wrong to not strive for it and not push for it and not make the best out of it. So
to not fight,
it
to
may
be your
come
best
with a lot
self.
of exactly. It's not always going to be the easiest thing. I burn out all the time. I'm sure Nouri, you've burnt out from poetry time and time again. It's not to say that it's going to be an easy ride, but if it's who you are, then it's all worth the growth at the end of the day.
Yeah. Another way, what I'm trying to ask is, like, do you think people that have some sort of passion, they're not really committed to it, do you think they'll achieve, for example, what you're achieving, where you're getting to the highest of highs in your art?
Not at all. I mean, there's a lot of artists in my community who are extremely talented. You could argue that they're better than me, but there's that common saying that, you know, you could be more talented than I am, you could be more skilled than I am, but you won't work as hard as I can.
Yeah.
You know, and at the end of the day, in anything, you don't have to be the best. You just have to be the hardest working. You have to want it the most. And that I grew up as an athlete. I played a lot of sports growing up, and that was the mentality at all times. You have to be able to step on the field or the pitch or the court, feeling as though you're the best player on that court, and you have to play like it. So it may take time for people to understand what you're doing, because if you look at a lot of the most influential people who are driven by passion, they were not understood until later on in their lives. There's going to be punches thrown at you, but you're not going to have much of a choice but to take it and fend them off and continue to get stronger.
Yeah, I think to add to that point, it's also the fear aspect. A lot of people don't pursue their passion because of that fear. But once you get over that hump, you'll see that, listen, it's going to be a long road, but you know, I can't be scared to take that approach.
Absolutely.
Like for me, like as a filmmaker, I would secretly do films, but as you noticed recently, this year and last year, I've been releasing all my stuff that I did back in 2016, 2017 now, because I'm slowly getting out of that fear stage. And everybody's like, dude, like, this is your work, like, just release it. And I'm like, yo, no, like, I don't want to do it. It's not. You have to get over it yourself. So eventually I got over that fear, and I'm like, you know what, screw it. I know I'm good. I don't need validations from others. I see what else is out there. Some people are phenomenally well, and I want to learn from them. And some people work at it a little bit more. I still want to learn from them, but it's getting over that fear that pushed me out there. And alhamdulillah, opportunities come that way. Then from there, you gotta have like that Jay-Z mentality. Okay, I'm an artist, but I'm also a businessman. Now, how do I take my passion and how do I, reap the rewards of my hard work, right? That's, I think, in my opinion, that's the hard part.
Do you guys think that fear ever goes away though? Because like, you just said right now, for example, you're releasing your old content from 2016 to 2017. Like I could never do that because I look at anything I've made over a year ago, be it a poem, be a documentary, wherever it is. I'm just like, this is horrible. I can't bear to release it. And even now, like the best example I can give of something I do most often is that, obviously you guys see I write poems and share them on Instagram. There's times where I write something, I'm like, you know what, this isn't good enough, and I fear putting it out there. Like the fear for me has never ever left me. I guess it's less in many ways because now I'm actually in the open. I am reciting. I'm pushing things out there. I'm pushing work out there. I'm always trying new things now and then. But the fear is always there. So do you guys think that as creatives, the fear ever leaves you? I mean, is there a way to actually overcome it, or is it more like, is it beneficial because it keeps your work in check?
I think the fear of a fear of not being perfect or not having perfection never goes away. I think as a creative, you always want to put out your best product to your people, which is ironic because 90% of the time, what you put out is what they accept, and they don't see it as from that perfectionist lens that we see it as creatives when it's our own work. And touching on Hassan's point, man, if fear wasn't a thing in me, I would have become an artist at 16. Like it would have been much easier for me to get into it. I can tell you a little story about how I first started and how I recorded my first poem.
Yeah, go for it.
It was called Smile, so it's extremely basic, and it was just telling people to smile. And I recorded it with those earphones, right? The Apple earphones. They have that little mic chip.
My OCD is already kicking in.
I recorded it with my mic, and I had to hide inside my closet in order to get that right sound, so my clothes can absorb the extra room sound. So I had to do the most in order just to be able to record that first piece. And a lot of that was because of fear. I was also, in a way, I was also hiding because I didn't know how my family would react. I didn't know how others would react. But with persistence, it's grown into what it is now, alhamdulillah. But to answer your question, Nouri, I don't think the fear of releasing something that isn't perfect ever goes.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I would also mention that you also want to show your growth over time. So even though your old stuff, you think that it's not good, when people look at your stuff today, be like, yo, this guy went from that to this. What's up next? So you just got to keep that in mind too. You're constantly growing.
I've got a really, really horrible OCD. I remember once I went through my Instagram and I purged. This is before I realized you could archive posts. I just purged everything from 2016, and I lost so much poetry. I deleted, like, not good enough. I just deleted everything, and it's like, now that I think about it, I do regret it because you can, like you said, look back on it. And I guess someone who kind of scroll, I know unfortunately these days Instagram is kind of like a portfolio of your growth, and I guess people can go to the beginning of your work and see how you've grown, but I just find it hard to get over the OCD. Ali, yeah. Alvi,
I think you should start putting it back up on every Thursday, Throwback Thursday.
I can't. For real, you should. But I do want to mention one point before Ali goes. One man's trash is another man's treasure. So what you might think, this is not my best work, somebody might have an effect on it.
Shashab, Hassan, I'll be very honest with you. If you scroll for my Instagram, every post that does very well, 9 out of 10 of them, when I'm writing this, like, this is absolute nonsense, but I'm going to push it out there anyway. And somehow it manages to...
I'm going to take you off mute from Instagram because I have you on mute. No, I'm just kidding.
Wow. No, it's always your own, Hassan, to quote you.
It's always your own, bro.
It'd be your own homies. Yeah.
Ali Alvi, whenever we have more than one Ali, I have to mention your surname so we don't get mixed up on who I'm asking the question to. Ali Alvi, obviously, I know you're not a rapper that I know of. You're always revealing things about yourself on this podcast. But I feel like the conversation around drive and hard work is something that, honestly, I think you probably beat us all on, because that's something that that you've done throughout this, the last few years, and I guess even before that. What's your kind of like 2 cents on fear and overcoming that fear and getting to where you want to be by working hard?
I think that's a great question, because as I was asking Ali about commitment to passion or being committed to your passion. I was kind of comparing it to what I go through in the business industry, or what an employee would possibly go through in their regular, day job or whatever it is. And for me, and as you know, like when I moved to New York, I started from scratch. We talked about it the other day, and I had a fear of possibly not being able to make it to the next level, and I didn't have any safety net set up, because I was like, okay, I'm burning the bridge and I'm just going. Wherever I end up is where I'm going to be. But that was my passion, because my passion was to have a business with my name on it. My passion was to grow and get better and better and better. So I had to commit to it, regardless of how many different obstacles I faced. And the fact is, if you're not facing obstacles, you're not growing. And if you get hit with an obstacle and you stop, you're not going to make it. Maybe you're not cut out for it, so you should stop and quit and, I don't know, do something else. Because that passion that's in you, that's going to keep making you want to continue to grow and get better at whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's art or poetry or whatever it may be. And I totally lost track of what your question was.
I think you answered it.
Words of wisdom by Ali.
Well, no,
Words
I
of wisdom.
really like what you were saying. Yeah, no, and I think it goes with that saying that, you can take a person out of their passion, but you can't take the passion out of the person.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah, Ali Alvi, like I said, you really need to start doing motivational talks, because you keep inspiring us to be better just by being here, just by seeing you and basking in your presence. I feel like I need to be a better person.
Thanks, Nouri. Thanks, Nouri. I'll
Ali,
share more of your.
Thanks, bro. Ali Soulful Poet, you mentioned the Muslim Fest story, and I remember me and you met, I think, a few months before that, when I came to Ottawa to recite for a few events. And at the time you were doing spoken word, and I think now you've transitioned fully into music. What was behind that transition? Why did you, because I hope I'm not mistaken, but it's very clear to me that there was a complete transition toward music. I know in the beginning you were like doing spoken word purely, and then kind of like dabbling with music here and there, but now you're pretty much doing music kind of all out. What was the transition like toward music, and why did you decide to transition toward music?
For sure. I, personally, from a career standpoint and as a human being standpoint, I don't see it necessarily as a transition. I just see it as adding to my repertoire. I think when we met, we'd spoken a lot about it too. And I'm sure you saw my interest in music and the influence I can have in music as much as spoken word. And I felt as though with spoken word, the impact I was able to make was significant, but there was always something missing that I was searching for, that I wasn't necessarily feeling that I was able to create. Maybe it was from an engagement standpoint, maybe it was from an impact standpoint, maybe it was from a like looking 5 years ahead standpoint. But adding music into my work has made me a lot more accessible and a lot more engaging with the community and the fan base that I've built. And I feel like the impact that I've created is a lot easier. The messages that I want to send people are a lot easier to receive if I do it in this method. And that's sort of been the big reason.
You've kind of alluded to over the course of the conversation, losing friends and facing backlash. Did you face backlash? Because I remember, the reason I'm asking is because I remember you posted an Instagram post once saying that, hey, my community kind of turned on me. I don't know if I misinterpreted that or what, but like, what was the kind of community? Because I know when I came to Ottawa, the Shia Ottawa community is very tight knit, very religious, very kind of conservative. And then here you come out blasting tunes and basically becoming a full-on modern day Nas. So what was the kind of like reaction to that, and how did you deal with that backlash?
The backlash honestly blindsided me because I thought
what was the backlash exactly? What happened? If you don't mind me asking.
So basically, no problem. So basically, I used to have this I used to rent out a space that was like a Shia youth group space, basically, and they would bring sheikhs, and they would watch football matches or UFC fights together. It was a place where Shia youth, or not even necessarily, it wasn't necessarily specifically for Shia, but it was where mainly Shia youth hung out on weekends, basically. And so I realized that they didn't really use it on weekdays. So I said, hey, you know what? I'm spending time here. Why not? Do you mind if I use it during the weekdays when no one's here? And they said, yeah, no problem. Pay a fee and use it. So I grew an attachment to the place. I felt as though this is where I can feel like home because I have that perfect balance of spirituality, and I also have my freedom of expression at the same time. And I thought I was being accepted. And then once I was well into my transition, I guess if you call it transition, or once I started adding louder music, because I always used a little bit of elements of music in my poetry as well, but once I made the music a little louder, per se, or I let my flow be guided by a pocket and a beat, that's when sort of people's opinions started to really come out. And it hurt me because it was a misconception, not necessarily religiously. It was more a social misconception that the music that I was doing, which was mainly hip hop, was something that would bring violence and gangs and the wrong things, basically, bring that wrong sort of attention and wrong message to the youth, when that was the exact opposite of what I was doing. And it's always been the exact opposite of what I was doing. So it hurt me that there was the way that it was being tackled was not seeing the full picture. It was very much stereotypical, and it was very much one-sided. So, and obviously, you just said it best. Like the Ottawa community is very niche based and tight knit, and they have their certain values, and even within them they disagree. But in this circumstance, rather than supporting someone that's trying to send a message and trying to do the exact same work that these youth groups are doing, and that the religious community was doing, just in a different way, I just became isolated from that, just because of music.
Do you resent them for that?
I don't carry resentment in my heart. Absolutely not. No, that's astaghfirullah. No, I can't. If ever they need anything, I'm there. However, I do think that the connection I have and the friendship I have with them has been impacted, most definitely.
That's your soul, man.
Would you consider it worth it then?
Because
you're chasing your passion.
Yeah, because I'm myself. Like I'm trying to, yeah, of course, because I'm trying to be myself out here, and I can't apologize for being somebody that I believe is the best version of myself. And if that's not something that people want to vibe with, I can't take the blame for that, of course. And I'm still the same Ali. That's what's crazy about it. It's very interesting in our communities when we have one difference. It's like we see the person in a whole new light, and it's like we see them totally differently, and we rethink our friendship with them, we rethink our connection with them, when in reality it doesn't have to be the greatest difference in the world. But that's what it made me feel like. So I took it pretty hard, to be honest with you, which is why I probably posted about it at the time.
It's very interesting. Hasnain, Ali, I know you guys want to jump in, but I just want to say something about this because, again, like, that does really, not this specific situation, but just generally, that kind of mindset does really get to me because I see it a lot. It's like, oh, you disagree with someone, that means you no longer respect them as a human being, or, you see them in a different light. And me, again, like, I started this podcast and I even told you on the phone, like, hey, most of what you're doing, I might not see eye to eye to it. I might not see eye to eye with it. I might straight up disagree with what you're doing. But you as a person, you're still my brother. You're still my friend. I don't judge you for it.
And
personally,
that's why we've remained close.
100%. Yeah. Me personally, I have my own red lines, and me and Hasnain have a lot of conversations around this. I kind of call myself a conservative liberal because I'm conservative on myself. But when it comes to my friends and people around me, like, I have a full no judgment attitude. People around me, even people who are religious around me, I have friends from complete different spectrums. You call them left leaning and right leaning. And the way I look at things and just life in general is I try to take the good from everyone. I try to see people's perspectives and understand them. And I think that's what's so important, because the minute you cocoon yourself inside a shell and you surround yourself only with people who are like-minded, I feel like you fail at life, because we're here to ultimately network with 6 billion people on this planet, right? And it just really kind of gets to me that people again, it is what it is. It's not like people are inherently, it's not like they're bad or they're evil. They're trying to do something good. They're trying to, I guess, get closer to God in their own way and be protective around their faith, which I do understand. But I feel like we need to kind of separate the conversation around, okay, this is the red lines in religion, versus, okay, now we're going to oust this person completely from also even, cut off friends and stuff, which I've seen, which is really, really, really disgusting.
It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking, but you really see, I think when you step out from that sort of community per se, you really see everything full circle. You see the whole picture, and you see that, hey, like, this isn't just me. I'm not necessarily a special case. It's happened to multiple people before. That doesn't take away the fact that it hurts, but it's a reality that needs to change.
Hastain,
Well,
what's your Ali? Go ahead.
When you were talking about how if someone does one thing and people start looking at them completely different, start judging whether you should be friends with them. I remember there's a quote from one of the imams where he says, "What if we judged you like you judge others?"
Wow, what a line.
That's a bar. That's a bar. You say you're not a rapper,
brother. Do you have a reference for that hadith? Do you have a
I don't, but I'll find it for you.
Is it on what's it called? Ping it. What's it called?
So even if it's not a hadith, right? Like, still, if you look at what's being said, it's very important, because we're judging people just based on one thing or two things that they may have done differently from the way we perceive things that they should be. But who are we? Like, we do so many things different from somebody else's perspective. So stop judging, man. Like, move on. Anyway, what I was gonna say, going back to the music part, is that, okay, so you started using more music, but then why go into some a particular type of music? Like, for example, music that could be used in like the tunes and the music that could be used in a club. Why go into something like that versus something more classical or anything else?
It's sort of like I said, I wanted to connect with for me personally, it's what growing up, a lot of my friends listened to that type of music, and it's what I connected to most. And it wasn't necessarily the music that's found in the mainstream today. It was a lot of, storytelling. It was a lot of, I would listen to a lot of artists who didn't necessarily cuss in their music, or didn't swear at all, and shared messages that were positive and preached positivity. So that was my understanding of hip hop at the time. Like, I wasn't exposed to people that, I don't want to name names, of course, but the ones that we can unanimously say that may not be the best to listen to. So to me, it was just a natural addition to my repertoire. I always used a little bit of music when I was doing spoken word, and nobody really had an issue with it. And I just wanted to explore a different art form as an art form. And I knew that religiously, I didn't feel as though I was falling into those red lines. I wasn't crossing those red lines. I was maintaining my boundaries, and I knew myself as well. So it just seemed like a natural progression for me to be able to connect with more people, because I do realize, and I think we can all agree, that a lot of Muslim youth are listening to music. Yeah. So as much as spoken word is amazing, it's not what people are consuming, and it's not where we need to, if you're trying to save someone from drowning, you're not gonna stop at the dock and try to reach your hand. You'll try to dive in. You know what I mean? Try to save them out of it, if that's what we're trying to do. So that's the mentality I sort of carry. If I'm gonna go in, then I'm gonna go in the best way I can possible, and stay true to myself the entire time.
Yeah. I'm gonna step in here because I want to take a step back. Because you said you started from spoken poetry, right? And then you transitioned slowly by adding in some tunes. So is that still your process today? Like, walk me through your process. Like, do you still write it the same way you would write your poetry? And then how do you transition that to music, or has it fully transitioned different? Like, your writing style has changed over time. You have to now listen to the beat and then write the music, or like write the lyrics, or then write the lyrics, then make the beat surrounding it. Like walk me through that, because I'm curious to see how you go about that process.
Absolutely. It hasn't changed one bit from spoken word to hip hop. I mean, spoken word was a lot easier to write freehand and not worry about the sound of the beat in the background. So I would be less constricted, and I'd be able to say a lot more, and then I'd worry about my delivery later. But now, even now, like, I have my like I told Nouri this too. Like, I'd find this saying, whether it's a quote, hadith, or anything I felt was a piece of knowledge that I could provide people, because I like to inform people through my art. And I would put that either at the bottom, middle, or just as a punchline in my work, so that when I say it, people are like, "Whoa, well, you said that," or that's what I want people to take out of it. So that hasn't changed by any means. It's just now that I'm just sort of constricted by the BPM, the beats per minute, that I can fit into a pocket, the flow. That's the only difference.
I got a question.
Have you ever taken Nouri's poetry and just rapped it?
Actually, I think I did that in person with him once. I don't know. We were or
I
maybe I did that on my own time while you were in Ottawa, without telling you. But yeah, no, I remember because you showed me a bunch of your latmias that you've written on your website, and you've seen that was as old as like back in 2015, 2014. Like it's been a while, and I would just look at them like I'm rapping them like bars. Like this is the flow is crazy here. But
I remember I think we were on the way to an event or something, and you were trying to show me like Emir Suleiman and these other rappers. Like, no, stop. I plugged in my phone, said Hassan Karbala'i, Muharram 2009, night 2. I was like, this is my vibe. Very, and to be honest, it is still my vibe. And I think for me, it's just like, even within that whole world of Islamic recitation about the Ahl Bayt and stuff like that, there are, kind of things that people lean toward. And for me, it's all about heart over anything else. And I guess you can even say that some people might have that attitude when it comes to your field as well. One thing I did want to kind of like talk about, which Ali brought up, was about the beats and tunes, and I want to revert back quickly to the uncomfortable conversation that we had in the beginning of the episode, because I feel like when we talk about music, generally the conversation around good and bad music is, hey, Eminem, for example, speaking about killing people and womanizing and I don't know where he speaks about. I don't know. We share the same birthday, but I don't know what he writes. So just want to put that.
Wow, what a fun fact!
We share the same birthday.
Wow, you're just gonna drop that like that?
Yeah.
Wow.
I had to throw it in somewhere. He's older than me, but October 17th, me and him. So I always have a tweet ready to go. Happy birthday to me and Eminem whenever it's my birthday. But the thing is, like, we always kind of focus on the vulgarity around the lyrics, but I feel like there is a conversation to be had around the beat itself and kind of like the tunes itself, because we speak about, when it comes to the topic of music that's kind of like forbidden in, at least in Shia theology, it is about the kind of music that can be played in places of immorality, such as clubs, etc. And I'll give you a prime example. I don't know if you guys have heard of Mona Hijabi, who's like a hijabi rapper.
Mona Haider.
Mona Haider, yeah, also known as Mona Hijabi, who kind of released her. I remember she kind of took the internet by storm, and Muslims are fighting left, right about how dare she come out and rap like this. And the conversation I was thinking about, and again, I think there's separate conversations to be had, which are more literal about a woman's voice and stuff in terms of the jurisprudential side. But the conversation I was thinking about was like, hey, okay, it's one thing if she has an art and she wants to rap, whatever, that's her thing. But my question was, okay, but the beat she's using is one that's typically used for like, trap music, dance music, the kind of music you play in clubs. And that was my kind of issue with it over anything. So I feel like, does that, I guess my perspective definitely is that the kind of tunes and beats we use, I feel like even they sometimes can push us toward that kind of mindset of forgetfulness and how the Quran speaks about lahu, like being almost mindless of what's happening. I feel like the beat can also do that, even if the lyrics are very positive. Hasnain, what's your perspective on that? Because I think that's a very interesting conversation to have, which is not often had.
It is a very interesting conversation. And when you were saying, hey, like she had a woman voice, but the beat was like a more like a clubby type of beat. My question to you was, so what she's trying to say is being drowned by the beat. So you see how somebody's perspective on something like that is different, because now one person listens to the beat, I'm trying to listen to what she's saying. So do you see what I mean when I say good and bad? It's like, what's her message? Yeah, maybe her production team made a mistake. Maybe we should have, hey, she's trying to say something about, I forgot what it was.
But the thing is, I'm not, but my conversation is not the fact that her lyrics are being drowned by the beat. What I'm saying is that my issue, again, like I said, there's no judgmental zone. Mona can do whatever she wants. We have mutual friends, and I'm not here to call her out. But my issue with the tracks and that kind of music generally, which even people, prominent Muslim artists, I don't want to say like yourself, Ali, because you're, I guess, on this show. But for example, you have like Dean Squad and stuff like that who push out positive music, but the tunes are the kind of tunes that make you want to dance and bob your head and kind of have that kind of forgetfulness, even if the lyrics themselves are good. So for me, it's like two almost antithetical themes are pushing against each other. Do you know what I mean? So even if you could listen to it and say, wow, I actually want to be a better, more spiritual person because the lyrics are positive, you're playing it in your car, the bass is loud, you're still kind of having that, you know, forgetfulness and almost, you know, dancing and stuff, and that's my kind of issue, my personal perspective. I don't say issue, my personal perspective on this whole thing.
I think the way I can correlate to that, and this is the best way I can put it, is because I obviously a filmmaker, I'm going to speak about films. When you're looking at a certain scene, there's a certain tone to that scene. If it's a horror film, you're going to hear like scratching and like horror tunes because it goes with the mood of it. That's the only way I can put it as. She's like saying something, but she was trying to be relevant, and therefore the music is trying to entice the youth to come listen to this, right? It's like kind of like that. Does that make sense?
I see what you're saying. Yeah, I understand.
See, like, that's the best way I can put it.
Ali Alvi, what's your wisdomous perspective?
Ali looking at me like I'm an idiot or something.
Finally, he's done talking.
In the background. Anyway, I was actually thinking about this a long time ago.
Because sorry to interrupt you, but we've had similar conversations about Qawwali in the past, right? As well. So I think that's quite a similar topic.
Yeah, Qawwali or even just the poetry that the Zakirs in Pakistan do, where they take a song, a tone of a song, or a beat of a song, and then they change the lyrics to having something religious, right? So you're still using the same tone, but you're just saying something different. Does that make it that it's not allowed? I don't know.
Bro, listen, we have Latmias where they take our chest beating and make it into a freaking tune, bro. Same thing.
It becomes a full EDM remix.
Yeah, for real, bro.
But the thing is, like, there's nothing to say that, you know, you can't cross the line even in Latmiyas or Nasheeds as well, right? Coming from my perspective, like it's not okay, all Latmiyas are now fine, but all music is haram. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that you got, from my perspective, you got to look at, you know, what are your kind of like red lines and follow that regardless of what industry that you're in. So even me, for example, as someone who produces Latmiyas in English, we do have those conversations. We had Ali Fadl on God, if we're on episode 24 now or something, back in episode 9 I think it was.
I mean, we're a big deal, man.
We're a big deal, or we're just very bored. We had Ali Fadl, and me and him always have those conversations about, you know, because he wants to kind of meld those two worlds of, dare I say, singing and Latmiya, and he does it frankly very well. So, you know, those are conversations that we have as well. I'll throw this question out to all you guys. Ali, Soulful Poet, I guess I'll ask you first. Do Muslims, this is quite a generalization, but do Muslims misunderstand music?
Absolutely. I think even relating to the previous question, I think there's no one size fits all. I think when you look at a painting, right, what you see in the painting, what I see in the painting could be very different. It could be very similar, but it could also be very different. I think that's the same thing for any form of art. And the music that even you're alluding to is also up to personal perspective and its subjective experience. Yeah, I think Muslims are naturally judged too quick, and I think music is no exception.
I agree.
Hasnain,
I agree 100%.
I know you agree, but like, what's your perspective?
I think that Muslims are
again, like just caveat, this is obviously a bit of a generalization. We're not saying all Muslims, but just based on our experiences and people that we've met and speak to in our communities.
Yeah, I think that again, like alluding to what I said earlier, this is a space where I see Muslims advancing as well. I think that it's something that music is definitely misunderstood by Muslims, but at the same time, it's not, because a lot of Muslims come from different various cultures, and a culture is a big part of it. So if you have Muslims coming from South Asia, like India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, there's a huge music culture there, and it's up to them to perceive it how it's going to infuse with their Islam. Then you have people from the Arab countries, and then you have people from various other countries and whatnot. So it's misunderstood because you have Islam, which is like a 2, 3 billion, 4 billion, 6 billion. I don't even know how many people from different aspects.
6 billion.
6 billion.
Bro, I don't know.
I think it's like 1.2, bro.
All right, whatever. But that's why it's being misunderstood, because I think that now you have like a culture clash of like Muslims are seeing other Muslims, and where Muslims in general are misunderstood, and then we also misunderstand music. So I think it goes hand in hand that way.
Interesting.
Look at Ali, bro. He's smiling right now. You see that?
I'm just thinking how we're coming at this saying, okay, do Muslims misunderstand music? As if we're saying that we understand everything, right? So, or
I do.
as if we're saying like according to us, right? But it's kind of hard to answer, honestly. Like that's what I was thinking about. Like, how am I going to answer this one? Because is it that Muslims misunderstand music according to the way I think, according to the way general society is, according to Islam, according to what?
You know, I think there's one kind of conversation that we're, and I guess just kind of winding down the episode. I think there's one kind of perspective that might be that we can consider. And I know, you know, let's be honest, you know, I work in social media. You guys have social media accounts. You know how backlash from Muslims is so easy to face on social media, and I've seen it time and time again.
Towards you, Nouri? You're an angel, bro.
not me specifically, but just generally, like, you know, on different accounts on Muslim organizations. You know, you post one thing, you're gonna annoy someone. That's just how it is, and unfortunately, the internet makes Muslims very vocal. But I think trying to think of a positive, I guess, angle on it, it is nice that Muslims are a bit protective over themselves and their communities, and you know, and a bit cautious, which ultimately is what Islam kind of teaches us generally. You know, everything from the fact that, you know, you can eat but make sure it's halal. You know, you can you know, make sure you get married, for example. Don't just like date left, right, and center. The whole point of Islam is like, just, you know, be a bit reserved with things. Just be a bit cautious. That's the whole point, right? And I think people do take it too far, especially, again, this is my perspective as well, when they enforce their opinions on others. I hate that. I hate when people enforce their opinions on others. It's probably my biggest pet peeve. I do not like it at all. And that's coming from someone who, again, like, calls himself a conservative. I will not do that. And, you know, I have many friends who don't practice the same way I do, who might not be quote unquote religious, and I'll try and remind them now and again to push them more toward, you know, praying and stuff. But like, if they don't want to, I can't force them. I'm not going to look down on them for it, because everyone's got their own kind of spiritual struggle. I think it's a balance ultimately. You know, you don't want to say, okay, everyone's, you know, to themselves, and, you know, only God can judge. But at the same time, you don't want to enforce, you know, opinions on people, and understand that everyone's a bit of a work in process, if that makes sense. So I think that's very important.
Definitely. I think there needs to be a clear distinction between being protective of one's own spirituality and then being protective of like one's community spirituality. A lot of times we try to, in the Muslim community, in my experience, we treat the community like it's ours and everyone has to follow this code, or if it's not specifically theirs, there's like this unwritten rule that must be followed. You know what I mean? And I feel like if we just look within ourselves and try to be our best selves, then the community will be exactly what the community is. People that look towards, try to be their best selves, and it'll just be a beautiful community. But when we try to, you know, make others behave the same way that we're behaving, it's going to just turn into war.
Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful way to end it. Ali, Soulful Poet, if you can just tell us, you know, what's next for you, what you're working right now, and where can people find you on social media?
Most definitely. So I got spoken word pieces as well as new songs coming out.
Something for everyone.
Something for everyone, exactly. All walks of Islam. But no, I'm working on a lot of things, and you can check me out on all social media platforms at IAM_soulful. And make sure to check out the website, thesoulfulpoet.com. If you're interested in a soulful hoodie, I don't know if you can see it on there. I got soulful hoodies.
Hey, you got to pay for sponsorships on this podcast, bro. Ali, I appreciate you. Inshallah, we'll see you again soon. Take care.
Likewise. Take care, everyone.
And that was a really beneficial conversation with Ali, the Soulful Poet. Ali, thank you so much for joining us. Before we leave you, please do not forget to subscribe to us on all platforms. We're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Spotify, Anchor, and we are also on YouTube. If you enjoyed this episode, please do share it with your friends and family, share it on online social media, and tag either myself, Hasnain Ali, or 786 Boulevard, and we will repost it for you. We release a new episode every Sunday, so stay tuned as we have plenty of really beneficial and inspiring episodes to come. Thank you for joining us here over at 786 Boulevard.